everything. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Sending you so much love today. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Become my friend there. But like and subscribe so that you can get informed every time we come up. Hey, Robert. Shalom to you, my dear brother. And, of course, go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Well, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook, and at Santita J on YouTube. Excuse me, on X. So everybody at Santita J on X, Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook, and then the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Everybody, please like and share. Like and share the show today. And also, hey, easy peasy Paula, how you doing? Everybody, please like the show and share it and share it. Of course, we have been talking about October 7th. We did that on yesterday's show. Talking about it again today because we're actually recording this show on October 7th. And it is a tragic day for sure. It is kicked off so much pain, my goodness, for so many people. And not just in Israel and Palestine, but all over the world, quite frankly. It reminds us of the peace that we all should be seeking that somehow or another we cannot manage to get to, but we're going to do that. Certainly in my own faith tradition, I keep hope alive, if you will. I know that we are supposed to beat, our pruning hooks into our plowshares. We need to seek peace. We need to find it, but you're not going to have it without justice, and you're not going to have that without mercy, and you're not going to have that without walking humbly before the God who is the parent of us all. So let's talk about that. There are still Israelis and Israeli Americans who are being held hostage. The Lancet study says that about 200,000 Palestinians have been killed in this conflict. And now the conflict has spread past Israel and Palestine. It is in Lebanon. And it threatens to go farther and farther and farther. And you have American troops with boots on the ground. Where will this go? How did this begin? Did it really all begin October 7th, 2023? Or has something been brewing for a long time? So let's talk about that with you, Alex Nelson, from If Not Now, Chicago. I'm looking forward to joining you in Chicago tonight on Monday night, October 7th, as we come together to break bread together. That is a song that comes from my own faith tradition. Let us break the bread together on our knees in humility, bowing to God, asking for help, asking for guidance, and asking for healing and the path forward. Josh Feinstein, Youth and Allies of Michigan. It's always so good to be with you. Jewish Voices for Peace. Amen for that action. And then, of course, you, Daryl Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition. And we do need to be transformed. And we can be transformed by the power of a changed mind. We can be. And we need that today more than ever. Let me start with you, Alex. Because I've met you, and I've been so blessed to have gotten to know and to have really gotten to have worked with so many of you wonderful young people from If Not Now. I've known the people from Jewish Voices for Peace. I've known Medea Benjamin and Norman Solomon and Jeff Cohen. These are really heroes and heroines of mine. I've been working with them. I guess they go back to having worked with my father for half a century. But I've gotten a chance to get to know you wonderful young people and to have gotten to know you, Josh Feinstein, virtually. And my brother, I know it drives him crazy when I say, what is it, locks and ham hocks? That's right. that's where we are. I know it's not kosher. That's why I'm bringing it. And so, but I mean, we have had some unexpected alliances to come out of this painful period. But it's been a painful period. It's been a very, very painful moment. October 7th. So let's go back to that day. How did you find out about this tragedy, this horror that happened?
Um, I think I found out the same way pretty much most Americans did, through just social media and news sources. I get push notifications from the New York Times. I'm sure that was probably an early source of information for me, and then followed that up by engaging with, um, the news channels, the news networks, and also I'm sure I was looking at online to see what information was coming out. And I was both devastated to hear about the loss of life on October 7th, and also incredibly nervous and apprehensive about what that would mean for the near future. We know that, I knew that this was a foreboding. There was a sense of foreboding and ominous feeling of what was coming next. And so I think October 7th was a really, really, really heavy day for a lot of reasons.
What did the sense of foreboding, where did that come from?
That came from a place of just knowing that the Israeli government, particularly under Benjamin Netanyahu's tenure, had been moving in a rightward direction and a more far right direction. October 2023 had been the deadliest year for Palestinian children on record. So we just knew that things were getting more oppressive and more violent, and there were no indications that the Netanyahu government was going to respond to October 7th with tempered consideration for human life, and with a true hostage release as the actual number one priority of his government and his administration.
So, in a real sense, I guess what you're telling me is that you do not believe, well, maybe this didn't all begin on October 7th, 2023.
No, I don't believe that. I believe that the Israeli government, from its earliest conception, has always been oppressive to Palestinians. That the Palestinian people live under an apartheid state, and that Gaza was just this. The conditions in Gaza were increasingly deteriorating. And again, in Benjamin Netanyahu in particular, being a particularly far right fascistic figurehead at the top of the Israeli government.
And that is where fascism leads us, does it not?
Yeah.
So, what is happening tonight in Chicago?
Tonight in Chicago, if not now, tonight, if not now, along with other allied groups, we'll be having an Every Life is a Universe memorial event where we'll be speaking to the grief and loss of the totality of human life that has been lost, both Israelis and Palestinians, acknowledging the grief and devastation that comes when any human life is taken from us early. We'll be hearing from speakers both locally, as well as we have individuals joining us from Shoresh, which is a Israeli-based human rights group and peace group. We'll have music. So it will be a moment of mourning, of collective grieving, and I think a moment to find some meaning and some solidarity in our shared devastation.
No, and I'm honored to have been asked to be part of this moment tonight. And I'm so looking forward to it because what gives me hope is that, number one, every crisis has embedded in it opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And in all pain, there is healing, and I think that we are closer to peace than we ever have been, as crazy as it sounds, because so much of the ongoing issues have been exposed. Maybe it's a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
You said, sadly, I thought we would get here, and here we are. A lot of people were taken completely by surprise, though, Alex. Completely by surprise, but you were not, which is tremendous foresight and forethought on your part. Josh Feinstein, this is a really hard day. And it's a very hard day for you. I can see and feel your heaviness, my dear beloved brother. What's on your mind today?
Well, it's a hard day for me because October 7th was horrible, but I think the world is just becoming aware that there were so many October 7ths leading up to October 7th, where in our name, where people, in terms of belief, took the good name of the Jewish people to commit atrocities, many atrocities before October 7th. And we've had 365 days of October 7th since then. I have family in Lebanon. I have two nephews. One is 7, the other is 9. They mean the world to me. They are not human shields. They live, they breathe. In Lebanon, many people refuse to leave. This does not make them human shields. Lebanon, Beirut is their home. And again, any loss of life is horrible. That is very clear. But as Jews, we are between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the idea of reflection and repentance. So wouldn't it make sense at this point now to turn and say, you've got a couple of options. You can talk about how did this start, and that could be a very lively debate. Or the other thing you can say is, like I've said to my family, which are very, very close to Zionists, whatever you want to discuss about politically, please stop the bombing of Gaza. Please stop the bombing of Beirut. And I tell my family who are Zionists, newsflash, that's not just my family now that's being bombed. It's your family too. Mm-hmm. So yes, my heart is very heavy today. In Dearborn, there will be a vigil tonight. I myself will be at the university, and we will do a screening of Israelism at the local Wayne State University.
Israelism?
Israelism, if I think, and respectfully, I apologize if it's not, I view Zionism at this point as a metastasized disease that affects the Jewish people in the globe. Israelism is a movie that talks about how people such as myself grew up indoctrinated with the idea that to be Jewish was to be Zionist, and they are one and the same. That Israel is, even if you're an atheist, God granted Israel to us, which I never understood the math. I believe Israel has a right to exist, and I believe Israel exists in the heart of every Jew. The movie Israelism, I think, is the beginning of the cure to the Zionist movement, which is the movie just shows how over the decades, how we become, as Jews and Western society, so indoctrinated into the idea that Judaism and Israelism is one and the same. Zionism is one and the same. And the movie basically talks through, and it even goes through in terms of up to the Bernie Sanders campaign about how, an example about how, so let me bring it to home. This summer, when you all were in Chicago, and we had the Democratic National Convention, you had a Republican up there giving a speech who was against everything we believed in, but the Palestinian delegate from our uncommuted movement was not allowed to speak. The movie shows a little bit about how things like that are normalized. And so it's a very important movie to see. It's a tough movie to watch. I've seen it a couple of times. I'll see it again tonight. That is the respectful way I plan to reflect on October 7th. It's really good to see you, Santita. On a personal note, I've been meaning to call you to get your feedback and advice, but I'll take that down.
Well, no. But you've had a lot going on with your family and everything, so I had to wait for things to settle down and a move. You know, I've been moving all year. I'm trying not to, Alex, lose my mind. Moving is just very traumatizing. It's just a lot. So now that I know that you're back on deck, hello, here you are. You're back home now.
I also do want to say thank you to Alex and all of you in Chicago for the work you're doing. You know, I really, really appreciate it.
Well, I mean, and for this reflection and repentance, I mean, I think, and that's something that belongs to the human family, quite frankly. We can all learn from each other, and I think that is really the point. We see the Palestinian and the Israeli and everybody, because we all have these conflicts. And I think that if you can resolve this one, you can resolve anyone. Because they're either within you internally, they're within your family, they're in your community. It's just, this is part of the human condition. And Alex, I know that you are planning tonight's event, so I'm not going to hold you. I told you I'd have you 15 minutes, and I am going to be a woman of my word because I want you to come back. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us before you go?
Well, first of all, thank you again for bringing me back on, and I appreciate the consideration for my time. I think I would just say for folks, you know, we are using today as a renewal for our call for a complete and total arms embargo. It is the first and most effective thing the United States government can do to bring about some element of peace and stability before this escalates into an all-out war. I think things feel incredibly ominous for folks. I think that this is a moment where we should really reflect on what our roles and responsibilities are as American citizens, me in particular as a Jewish person, but I think broadly any American can say to themselves, what can I do to help ensure that my representatives and my senators, my elected officials are calling for an arms embargo, knowing that that is one, for the greater good of our humanity, fewer lives lost, less destruction, less catastrophe, less destabilization. And it's also good policy and politics. So this is one of those moments where these two things align. And I think we should all take a moment on this very heavy day and this 1-year anniversary to look towards real practical things we can do to bring about stability and calm. And that is an arms embargo, not another bomb.
Not another bomb, and certainly not in our name. So much of it we are paying for. And I remember when Jack Odell, who was the first director of our international affairs at Rainbow Push, a man of such tremendous consequence, that John F. Kennedy asked Dr. King to fire him because he was so progressive and he had explored different political ideologies. But I remember he was part of the delegation that my parents led into the Middle East more than 40 years ago. I think it was in 1979. And he said, you can do as you wish, but you can't do it in our name and with our money and our bombs. And it ended the meeting. I mean, and I think they ran my parents out of the country after that. No, we did pay a heavy price for that.
No.
That having been said, Fidel Castro said many, many years ago that history will absolve me. And I bring him up because my grandmother, Gertrude, was a migrant worker in Cuba as a little girl. She was orphaned when she was about 11 or 12. And so she had to hop on a boat and go to work so she could eat. And so when she was in Cuba, the challenge for her as a very, very dark-skinned African, West African-looking woman, she just didn't have the social options that my father's people had, who looked like white people, quite frankly. And she said, you can say what you will about Castro, and she was a very conservative woman, for the record, everybody. She said, but we were little more than slaves then. She said, now that's changed. And that was a world that was impossible for her. So I can only imagine what was going through her mind when she was sitting behind her son-in-law as he spoke for the Democratic Convention in 1984. I can only imagine going from being a migrant worker to not having the right to vote to that. If you can make that journey inside of a year, inside of a lifetime, get your undergraduate degree at 61, then get a master's at 65, imagine what we can do. Mm-hmm. So I don't want you to have as heavy a heart today, because God is in this moment. And just know that God is ever present. Now, what are we going to do?
Absolutely.
So see you tonight at 7:00, young lady. If not now, Chicago. If not now, when? If not who? You. If not you, who? What? See you, sweetie. I'll see you tonight.
Bye. See you tonight.
Absolutely. And of course, Josh Feinstein and Daryl Jones. I know you're running today, but you did want to come in and weigh in on this topic, because this is, this is quite a moment. And I think it's a moment of reflection for all of us, Josh. It's an opportunity for all of us to repent, because we all have to repent for something, because the world is not quite right, not quite yet. Daryl Jones.
Santita, when I think of a year ago and where we are now, and what happened, listening to Josh, listening to others that have been directly impacted by what has happened, one of the things that I try to remind folks of is that, you're not a citizen of the United States. You are a world citizen. And there's an obligation that comes along with that. When someone loses, I can recall several years back, and this is when it really opened my eyes. I have an uncle that was a Muslim, and he passed, and he did not have other family. When it came time for the service, we went to the service, and I was to make all the arrangements. And the Islamic family there's community said, "Don't worry about it. We're taking care of everything. We've got it." And I was like, "Well, he doesn't know anyone." The mosque there was filled Why was it filled? Because they said, we didn't know Brother Atif, but he was a member of our community. And that's what's important. We've lost a member of our community. When I look at what is happening with regards to Gaza, with regards to Israel, and all that has happened from October the 7th, you may not have known an individual person that was impacted, but you know you lost a member of our community, and that something must be done to bring the community back together, to bring peace to that region, and for all of us to be able to get along with our differences and respect our differences and live side by side. So, Santita, when I sit and I think about the world citizenship, when I sit and I think about what I felt on October the 7th, is I was trying to just untangle the feelings of what I was going through, untangle the feelings of those that lost loved ones at the concert that has occurred, and what happened subsequent to that. You raised the number of 200,000 Palestinians that have been killed. I raised the number of how many more have been injured or enabled or need care and can't get to a hospital. That number exceeds all of that. So I think that this is certainly a time of reflection, a time that we need prayer, but more importantly, a time that we actually need some type of action to stop the violence, to stop the killing, and start to have real talks of peace and how, as you like to say, the lion and the lamb can sit beside one another and benefit one another. That's what I see, Santita.
Amen. And they should lie down, because that means you relax, you rest. That means when I close my eyes, that means I can trust you.
Yes.
And that's really where we are. And it's a human problem. It really is. I mean, sadly, this is not unique. It's not. Because people have been fighting since time immemorial. When are we going to stop? Not another life. Hospitals and schools have been eliminated. People are being wiped out. That's not right. It's just not right. I mean, and I'm sure you have yet your own perspective, Reverend Wilson, because as a pastor, I mean, what do you say?
Well, I think that we must understand that grief it goes across cultures, it goes across gender. And when I think about what happened in Gaza and Israel, there's no justification for the level of pain and hurt and death that we've witnessed from afar. I think about children in Chicago. They grow up on streets, post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD, because it's warfare on the street. It's even more unimaginable for children living in Gaza and Israel to be to witness bombs and to see their peers just die before their very eyes, to be hungry, to be homeless, not because you've done anything wrong. I look at the children, and you have to think about they will grow up, and what will they remember, and what will they feel about what happened. None of us went to school thinking that someone that we were attending school with would not be there the next day. I never saw anyone my age when I was in elementary or even high school die. I think one person died in the whole time I was in elementary and high school from rheumatic heart failure, not from violence. And this violence it's unprecedented, it's unnecessary. Netanyahu has no care for people. And usually when fascists take power, it's all about power. They just ignore the needs and they have no sense of people. And the Bible requires us to be proximate to the call to people, to see their needs. And I could not be in Gaza or Israel and watch the death and the hurt and the harm and not do something. Dr. Otis Moss was there. And he's been raising money for the people in Gaza ever since he came back, because he said, you're stepping over bodies or people that have been maimed. And now this 1 year later, they're dropping bombs and sending missiles like missiles don't have a name on them. They just, when they hit, whoever's in that building just dies. This is not targeted murder. This is just random. Whoever's in the place, they just die, and we don't have any feeling for that. I don't know how people can say that this isn't a problem. It's just hard for me.
It is. I mean, you know,
I don't know how pastors and even in our Christian churches, why we're not praying every time we have an opportunity for the people that are innocent people are dying. These people are not, they're not even in the military. These are citizens, civilians that are being killed, Jewish and Palestinians. And it's like the bullet doesn't know no culture or race or gender. It doesn't care. It just explodes. Those bombs are being dropped. It's just wrong. And for this one man to not be able to sit down with another one man and say, hey, let's figure out how we can coexist and not co-annihilate our people.
Well, you know, I mean, so what do you see, Josh? I mean, because what is, in your estimation, a path forward?
Can I ask Josh one thing before he answers? Josh, I'm so glad you're on here. I want to know the name of the movie.
It's called Israelism. Israelism.
How can I get that?
It's a good question. In terms of licensing or seeing it, I'll tell you, I'll do my research and get off.
I just want to see it.
No, it's an amazing film. Very hard film to watch. Again, Israelism, and it's on me. I forgot the name of the director. And the important thing is, I see the movie in my head. You know, I think
we'll find it, because I think that the more that we hear, the
there
more
you go.
we see,
and we understand.
The better equipped we are to help resolve this issue, because I think that Americans in particular have an absolute obligation, because this is being done in our names, and now we have American boots on the ground. And we've had American boots on the ground for some time, but now specifically they're being deployed to Lebanon.
And what push caused me to be Santita, and I think you're so right, we have to share our cultures. I have grown up in a multicultural environment before I got to Push, and then it was enhanced at Push, because I didn't live as Santita in an isolated world. And people have to know, if we understand the culture and the ideas, and it makes a difference.
Well,
it's like
because
the fish, I eat children's.
Well, but because we've grown up in an environment where Reverend's leadership, as he really did, he always lifted up Black people, because Black people we've had particular need of that.
Yeah.
But he never confined himself. The day that he announced that he was running for president, Josh, he said, I'm a Black man and I am a Black candidate. He said, but this is an American campaign. But for the first time, you will see an American campaign from the Black perspective. That is from the bottom up, from the manger up, not from the mansion down. That's why I think it's important for us to understand this conflict is a very human conflict, Reverend Wilson.
Absolutely.
Because this is what human beings do, Josh. And when you come out of a Holocaust, and a Holocaust is something that's happened to so many of us all around the world, unless you do the healing, you turn around and you do the hurting. And that's what we're seeing.
And I would ask people, if they think that this is somehow, it's just war, interview the children. I interviewed children,
all of them,
when I was at CPS, who had friends who were murdered, and they don't process it the same way.
That's right. And
they remember it forever. And so I just think, Josh, you have a unique opportunity. And I'm so grateful Santita has you on the call, because so often we look at these programs and we don't understand, we don't see. You should have Susanna Heschel on too.
Well, we can do. I will reach out to her.
Yeah, I mean, because this is serious.
Well, and I think that there is a real opportunity for healing.
It is.
You know, and that's where I am. You know, I'm a product of, you know, of my parents, and this is my father. My mother can have a view that can be a little bit more skeptical, but it's filled with more skepticism. But he always sees the glass, and I am like that. I see the glass half
empty.
full.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, no, 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 there's an opportunity here. So before I lose up, I want to get Bryce Green, the brilliant young PhD candidate from Indiana University, who has been fighting for Palestinian justice and Israeli security. And he's one of these young student leaders. They were going to deny him the opportunity to finish pursuing his PhD. He had to fight for it. Of course, you've heard us talk about this, Josh. But he's with us today, and he's had some connection problems. But I want to bring him up. Bryce Green, you can unmute yourself. I hope. Oh, but you know we're going to get him. We're going to get him back.
We'll get him back. It's always good to see Bryce.
It is. I know. But you know, it's a wonderful family that we've been able to create here over the past year, and this is where you have to be grateful for this moment, because I didn't know you a year ago, and now I can't imagine not knowing you. You know, I mean, no, but it's true. I mean, and I'm just hopeful, Josh, that we're going to move forward, because while we are mourning today, it is also mourning today without a you. It's the start of a new day as we are in the Jewish New Year. It is a time to reflect. It is a time to repent. Absolutely. We've got to do that. We've got to find a way, because if we don't find a way, the world's not going to be able, we'll never make it through, because the war is expanding, Josh and Reverend Wilson. I mean, and who would have thought that this war would just continue to expand, and people living on beaches in Lebanon? I mean, and I pray for your family over in Lebanon, Josh, because I can't imagine living with that kind of fear every day.
They don't have fear. When I was there, I've been there several times this year. I was there in January, and the Israelis shot a rocket, went over our house, hit the house kilometer down from us, murdered the people in it. Of course, they were blah blah blah. And the bottom line is sovereign terrorists. So I run into I don't know if I told you this. I run onto the balcony, or my father-in-law. I says, "This is terrible." He says, "This is absolutely horrible." No, this is terrible. He's like, "Yes. Who made you think you could eat all my tangerines?" That's where his mind was at. In other words, such a cool cucumber that he was like, and he was not joking. And the conversation devolved into, well, you ate my low-fat Lebanese. My wife's calling up to make sure we're okay, and we're arguing about that. So it gives you a sense of the absolute stubbornness, the willfulness of the Lebanese to enjoy life, to really get on with things, you know. And I juxtapose that to the way things are, where people are cringing in fear because they feel threatened, because they feel their perception is they don't like the way this makes them feel. And I'm thinking, interesting, because where I visit, it's not a matter of their feelings. They actually are in life and death situations, and then they assess it and they move on. And it's hard bridging that gap, Santita. It really is. I really hope that people will be reflective and say we're all human beings, and regardless of the politics, whatever started, whatever didn't. And if I digress, in terms of starting, I would recommend people go and look at how, for years, Netanyahu funded Hamas and made sure that Hamas was well funded, and he made a miscalculation. He thought, if I fund Hamas, keep the Palestinian Authority on their toes, what's the worst that could happen?
No, but he also ignored the intelligence that told them what Hamas was going to do.
Exactly.
Which makes you question him. I mean, I heard that on C-SPAN this morning.
Yes.
Like, how is it that, because this is one of the, there is no more effective military force in the world than the IDF.
Paid for with your tax dollars and mine. Funded by you and me.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, and look at what they've done with it. They are the best of the best of the best. They're the best.
Yes, they are the best of doing the worst of the worst of the worst.
Well,
and as they do the worst, as they are the best at doing the worst, as we have a hurricane hitting our shores, each family is going to get, what, $750? For the hurricane?
And I'm trying to
Yeah.
check and see because there was a FEMA administrator who was online last night saying that that is not a grant but a loan,
Interesting.
and that
While we
they
gave,
could, and that the government could seize their property if it's not repaid.
so I'll try not to be cynical and I won't make smart comments, but I'll just go to the facts. 30, what is it, $33.2 billion given to Israel this year.
Yeah.
Now you divide that by the people, that's a subsidy of $3,500 per person just to, and again, I want people to exist. I want people to be safe. I want people to be happy, but I do not condone what is going on.
But questioning the existence of people who are already there, that's crazy. So I
Yes.
never understood that. So I
Yes.
mean that to me is a non-starter. The question is, the thing is, if you want to be a neighbor, you got to be a good neighbor. You can't just plop yourself in the middle of someone's life. That's what courtships are for. Courtships are to find out, can we get along? Because if we can get along, we can work that out. If we can't work this out, then you need to move over. But Bryce, you're still with us?
Hey, Bryce.
Yes, can you hear me?
Now
Yes.
we got you, and we're gonna get you as long as we can.
All right, trying a new tech setup, but this should be all right. Yeah, no, I agree with what everyone's been saying about the need to use today and this moment to reflect not only on how we got here, but also how we can move forward. And in a big way, those have the same related answers. We got here because of an ideology that says that we can take whatever we want from whomever we want, and a practical reality that says that the largest superpower in the world is going to support us while we do it. And here we are today talking about ceasefires and arms embargoes, like this is something new. Right? Like you hear people who have talked about this subject for years saying, well, if only they had listened to me before. If we were not funding Israel, they would never have been able to do something like the genocide. They would never be able to do something like keep 2 million people in an open air prison that creates the conditions that generates attacks on Israel. If we weren't funding Israel, we would never be in a situation where they think that they can expand a war in Lebanon against Iran, against the Houthis, with the support of the American military on the side. If we did not give that support to Israel, then Israel would be forced to be, as you said, Santita, a good neighbor. But since we have pledged unlimited support, even when we disagree, even as they're committing genocide, even as they make complete fools of top American officials, even as they do that, we have continued to pledge our support. Well, this is why the genocide is happening. And this is why we might be, they say stumbling into a broader war, but it's not really. It's only one side that is escalating. It's only one country that is saying, we don't want a ceasefire. We won't accept negotiations. We'll assassinate your leaders if they call for a ceasefire. We'll bomb your country even if you're not next to us. And we'll kick you out of your home for good measure because it's ours. There's only one side saying that, and that's Israel. And that's the side we're funding. And so when we talk about how to move forward, I mean, the answer is clear. We have to call for an arms embargo, but how? This country, this political system, all the power centers have said that we don't care about the death and destruction. We don't care about the risk of a wider war. We don't care about any of that. So why would we ever call for an arms embargo? And that's the real question that organizers need to ask themselves. The power structures in this country, they don't care about what you and I care about. They're not human beings in the same way we are. I mean, they're machines, right? It's a machine that churns out the weapons to Israel. It's a machine that drives the American military industrial complex. These are internal logics where you swap out a person, you take out a person, there'll be 15 more to replace them. So it's a machine. So how do you affect the machine? And that's where you get to activism. That's where you get to organizing and resistance here at home. I mean, you have people over there resisting the genocide, but we have a duty to resist the genocide here as well. And that means getting to the street. That means analyzing which institutions you're a part of and which systems you're a part of that are promoting this militarism, that support Israel unconditionally. Yeah, that could be your university, that could be your church, that could be your super PAC, that could be the candidate that you really like and has a really good heart and has a very good message, but they keep sending weapons to Israel. It's about examining all of these and looking for ways to apply pressure to change that incentive structure, to change that overwhelming hegemony of the Israeli narrative. That means fighting back against the endless stream of lies that we're being told about this conflict. The lies that Joe Biden is working hard to start a ceasefire. No, he's not. He's not. If you want to start a ceasefire, you can end the flow of weapons to Israel. That's how you get them to do a ceasefire. You can end the lies that say that Israel is taking care to not kill civilians, to not target civilians, to let in aid. All these lies. It takes energy and it takes organizing to fight against them, to create a new narrative, so people do understand the stakes in play, and people do feel motivated to continue to organize. And so that's my call to people on this day, on October 7th. We have a vigil tonight at my university, Bloomington, Indiana University, Bloomington, where I'll reiterate these things, because people need to know that there is something that they can do about this, that it's not just a matter of, watching and bearing witness and, saying the poignant words. It's about doing things. It's about challenging your institutions, about pushing back. And I hope that your listeners and everyone else, tuning in, will be able to take from that and go forth and figure out how to push forth in this world.
Because I think that is the path. I think there is a path forward. And I think that we have to understand, Josh and Reverend Dr. Wilson and Bryce Green, that there is a path forward, that in this crisis there is an opportunity. I am an optimist. Even as Stevie Wonder wrote, there's joy inside my tears. As some old person wrote, there's joy I have, the world didn't give it to me, they couldn't take it away. They can't. Well, there is, what does Reverend say? My father says, you do best what you study, what you do most.
Mm-hmm.
And we study war best. They get first dibs on the budget. When Congressman Kucinich, I hope he gets back to Congress, when he says, well, when I'm running, I want a Department of Peace, people laughed at him. There's something that's off about our values, because we don't value human life, Reverend Wilson.
We don't. And I remember, this is how strong what you're saying and powerful it is. When the president of the Gambia was going to murder 40 people in a firing squad, Reverend Watt saw it on television, and he said, "Oh, he can't do that." He said, "John, get the ambassador on the phone. I need to talk to the president." Gets the man on the phone. He said, "Would you hold off on the firing squad till I can get there?" And I'm sitting there thinking, this man he saw this problem. He saw murder getting ready to happen, legalized murder in that country, just like we do the death penalty in America. It's murder, any way you look at it. And then if the faith community, as one part of this society, if all of the faith leaders would gather together and say, this is enough, that means the rabbis, that means the imams, the Christians, the Greek Orthodox, everybody, like they marched across that Edmund Pettus Bridge, if they stood strong all across the world and said, no, this is enough. No more war. We're going to have to sit down and have a peace treaty. You're going to let warmongers and people that are making money off of war. War generates money. That's what it's about. You don't go to war to solve any personal problems. You go to war to make money. You got to make the bombs. You got to make the guns. You got to buy the uniforms.
Because that's where the money's going.
It's an industry.
It's going to Northrop Grumman. It's going to Raytheon. It's going to Boeing, that cannot keep My
Yes.
goodness, an 8-day trip has turned to an 8-month escapade. These people
Yes.
are trapped up in space,
Yes.
and they continue to get tens of billions of dollars from us.
Absolutely.
Wait a minute, while our people are in this region that has been flooded out, and they are getting a $750 loan.
I didn't know it was a loan. Wow, what an
I
insult!
did when I
What
heard
an
this
insult!
That's an insult.
online yesterday, and if they default, their property can be seized. And
But
you don't think people are not furious about that? Now come on, you guys.
well, trying to be positive, the one thing I am grateful for,
Oh,
first of
I'm
all,
positive because you know what? I'm glad I got the information.
um, I'm grateful that I'm here in Michigan while everything's going on because one, Bryce and the Reverend were so eloquent in summing up, what is going on. And I was thinking, listening to you, Santita, in terms of like the plan forward, at least being here in Michigan, I'm amongst communities that really have their finger on the pulse, and they're not lying down. There's something called the Michigan Community Conversations, which now is about I think 1,000 strong of people that are very active, and all the leaders, whether it is uncommitted or Detroit to Palestine, all of them have come together under this Michigan Community Conversations and this coalition that I've been hoping would gather. And it's good to be in Michigan because this is where we are in ground zero, both of not just the pain, but the idea to be able to take action and solution. So with that, I did look up there. I put in the chat, Israelism actually is, it's also free with ads on Tubu and Roku. And I put in israelismfilm.com in there. Again, I think the film is really a good way to kind of sum up what's happened leading us up to this genocide and what continues to happen, and then the idea of possible awakening and solution and healing. So it's in the chat, and for your listeners, it's israelismfilm.com.
Well, we
Again,
need
I
to
think
see
of
it. I think we need to see it because I think that there's some conversations that I realize that the Jewish community need to have as internal conversations. But this is not an internal issue. This is an issue that we all share. So while you can have an internal dialogue, but we need to see everything so that we can be informed. And the only way that we're going to end this is the more information we have, Josh, the better off we all will be. Because right now we don't have enough information. And thank you, Chaparral. You said the initial FEMA amount, $7,750, is not a loan, it's a grant. I'm reading conflicting pieces of information. And so I want to find out because they said in the fine print, because there was a FEMA administrator who went on, a retired man who went on and said, hey, watch it, everybody. And the sad part is, Chaparral, and I thank you for that, because I hope it's a grant. I promise you, I hope it's a grant. Even though 750 is an appallingly small amount of money. What can you do with 750? When you've lost what hotel, food, what you gonna do with that?
exactly.
I mean, it is just like, we have children. The commercials now where children are saying, well, if I only had internet at home, I could finish my homework. Come on, y'all. I mean, Apple is a $1 trillion corporation. Come on, what are we doing? I tell you what, whatever we're doing, it's not the right thing because it's not. We talk about being pro-life. No, you're not. Everything you're doing is undercutting the lives of the people who are breathing right now. So come on, everybody, what are we doing? So, Reverend Dr. Wilson, your closing thought in a minute.
I think we have to do as Reverend Jackson has always taught us, we must learn to live together. In order to learn to live together, I have to know you. I have to understand your culture, and our differences, and we will find that there are more things we have in common than we have apart. We must pray for peace in the Middle East, on the continent of Africa, which Middle East is, and in America. We have to really pray hard, and I call on the faith community to lead this peace summit. We must have a peace summit and study war no more.
And and I think that we can. I think that peace is not just possible; it's right here. We're the ones who have to make it happen. It's not just going to fall upon us. Peace is something that you have to work at. You have to work toward, and you have to work at it every single day, because something in the human in the DNA, in our social and spiritual DNA, has us fighting to let our better angels, our higher angels, come through. And that's just a human thing. It's just a human thing, y'all. It's just human. It's just human. So I'm going to give you the final word, Josh, but I want Bryce to give us a word before we close out. Bryce, your thoughts as we look at the path forward.
Right. I mean, looking at the path forward, it seems that a lot of people like to get distracted by the political pageantry that happens in our country, where you get to pick between this guy backed by oligarchs versus this other guy backed by oligarchs, and then say it's a democracy. Well, part of the reason that that's a farce is that both sides are enthusiastically supporting the horror that we're seeing every single day. They're trying to outdo each other. They're saying that, oh, the other one hates Israel. I support Israel more. I want to give more money to Israel. Until we can see that for exactly what it is, an extension of the top-down oligarchic control of our politics, well, then we're going to go nowhere. Every problem that comes up is going to be blamed on the other side, blamed on some, magic trend. But no, we have real answers to these questions about who is it that's preventing you from having health care? Who is it that's starting all these wars in the Middle East? Who is it that's preventing the government from responding effectively to these floods? I mean, it's the same answer. It's the system. It's the system of oligarchic control of our government. And as we look a year on from this genocide, we can see pockets of resistance happening. People becoming wise to this. People understanding more and more that the people who they hold up as your saviors aren't going to do anything for you. I mean, we're seeing the third-party candidate get majorities in certain communities. That's positive development. People need to understand what are the systems that are governing them and what are the systems that are destroying their lives and act against it. And the system that's perpetrating this genocide is exactly that.
And and these candidates have to come with more than outdoing each other on love for a system that is killing people. That's not going to work for me. It's just not. It's just not. This is not. This is not going to work. And I'm watching both of the major parties fight to be wrong. They're wrong. They're wrong. And this is just as it's getting uglier by the day. And we will be held accountable for this when we meet our judgment day. And I just buried a very dear friend, someone I've known all of my life on Friday. And I'm very clear that we're real close. Real close. And I'm not saying this with any morbidity, but eternity is a long time. And I certainly don't want my soul on the rack for that, for having stood for the wrong things here while I'm on earth, Reverend Dr. Wilson. This is not right. It's just not right. This is ugly. You can't justify killing all these people.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary, and it's just as wrong, and you cannot justify killing all of these people.
Innocent people. They have no angst against anybody.
You forcing people to live on beaches. No. And while I am fighting for the Israelis to get home, they should not be held in captivity, but for them not to mention the Palestinians today, it's a sin. And it's a moral disgrace.
Well, it is.
They're tied to each other. They're tied to each other. What happened on October 7th?
It impacted everybody.
It's an absolute atrocity. But what's happened October 7th tonight to 2023 to 2024, that's an atrocity also. It's got to stop. This is ugly. Josh, Jews and Allies, Michigan, my dear brother, beloved, what is your closing thought before we go?
Two closing thoughts. One is advice you had given to me a while ago after the primaries, which we're really acting on here in Michigan, is register to vote, get people to register to vote, and go vote. Make sure to feed the pipeline, seed the future. And that is happening here in Michigan. And I would say to everyone that's listening online, make sure you're registered to vote. The deadline's coming up, and make sure you go vote. I personally think that voting third party to break the two-party system is the way to go, but vote your conscience. The other thing is, I do want to say this, that, I think people then get caught up again about the way they feel about something that was said. And I know that, I think around this time last year, the fact that Palestinians, or we were speaking out and saying this, they're saying, well, that is not appropriate. Well, the great Norman Finkelstein said, look, don't get caught up on that. If you see something and they're saying this expression is not appropriate, well, then take the part out that might not appeal to them. So I'll close with saying this: from the rivers to the seas, all peoples shall be free. So there you have it. All peoples. That's
Amen to that. No, that's it for all of us. And may God bless all of you. And Happy New Year to you. And as you said, we're between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, your most high, holy season. And we just thank God for you. And we thank God for the reminder. How about that? The reminder about reflection and repentance.
We're praying.
And that belongs to the Jew that is in every one of us, the Christian that is in every one of us, the Buddhist, the person who questions, the agnostic, the atheist in every one of us. Every one of us have been up on a cross, and we have twisted, and we have wrestled with our faith. So every part of the human experience is in everybody. So don't get on your high horse. Let's keep on walking together, everybody. And do not get tired. Do not get weary. You know what? There is a storm out on the ocean, and it's moving this whole way. But if your soul is not anchored in the Most High, you will surely drift away. Now, come on, everybody. Let's get together. Let's make this right. Let's make this right. Let us make a world. Let us make real on earth what is already existing in heaven. We are but a thought away from making this world what God meant for it to be for each one of us. I love you, everybody. God bless you. God bless you. I'm Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Blessing everybody. Bless.